Good afternoon, Patriots. This is Praying Medic, and this is my QAnon update for Monday, September 14th. Welcome to the broadcast. Those of you following along at home, doing your own decodes, you can find Q posts on several different websites, including qanon.pub, qag.news, qpost.online, and qanon.news/Q. If you are looking for information about Q, you might want to check out my book, Calm Before the Storm. It's the first book in the Q Chronicles, and Volume 2 is getting close to being finished. A couple more chapters to edit. Volume 1 covers some of the subjects that Q talked about in the first few months of the operation. A lot of information about Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the Iran deal, the Clinton Foundation. There is a chapter on the NSA and Admiral Rogers. There's a chapter on General Flynn. There is even a chapter on game theory, which Q discusses quite a bit. And there is a glossary in the back of the book that has over 500 terms, abbreviations, acronyms, names of people, names of agencies you may not be familiar with, and those are decoded to the best of my ability in the back of the book. Calm Before the Storm is available on both Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And now, let's jump into today's decode. My theme for this broadcast is the future of our republic is at stake. Going to try to give a little bit of information about these two kind of towers of treason with John Brennan and James Comey that were posted on, I think, Friday of last week. So on Friday, Q reposted these two messages from an Anon, and people have been asking, is there any significance, is there any meaning in these? I don't really know for sure. I did note that this tower with the names of James Comey has 10 sets of 5 lines of his name. And the set with John Brennan has 12 sets of 4 lines of his name. So at first I thought, well, is that talking about 12/4 as a date? Is it 10/5 as a date, October 5th maybe? I don't know. I'm not convinced of that. But I did notice something interesting that Lindsey Graham said. This was in his interview with Sean Hannity on Thursday, the night before.
Okay, so where are we with this, and what about these new developments? Because I think they owe us answers, that they all made password errors, so now we're just going to erase the phone completely and wipe it clean? You mean like with a cloth? That kind of clean? Bleach bit clean? Hammer clean?
We cannot live in a country where this is tolerated. Trump, Russia, look how much money they spent, how many agents were involved investigating all things Trump and Russia, how many subpoenas issued, how many lives turned upside down. The question for me, was there a double standard here? It's pretty obvious to me there was, but stay tuned, Sean. You think you're mad about the phones being wiped? Stay tuned. We'll talk in about 10 or 12 days, and we'll see if there's something else you could get mad about. Just stay tuned.
I hate when you're basically telling me you know something I don't know. I hate that.
So Lindsey Graham said we'll talk about it in 10 or 12 days. And this was on Thursday. Now, these towers here, right, Comey, there's 10 sets. Brennan, there's 12 sets. Is that what the Anon was alluding to? I don't know. The 10 to 12 days from Thursday, last Thursday, would place this around the 20th to the 22nd of September. So Lindsey Graham thinks we're going to have something to look forward to at that point. On September 11th, that was 3 days ago, Q reposted a tweet by Kevin Corke, who wrote that a DOJ source had told him to set his alarm clock in reference to arrests and indictments. And here's a tweet. He said, I'll believe it when I see it. Q then posted this on the 13th, yesterday. Equal justice under the law as written, transparency, disclosure, and accountability. Justice is the only way forward. Future of our republic is at stake. Watergate times 1,000. September 14 to 18. And then 21 to 25. Track and follow events. Did Kevin set his alarm? Q. So Q is giving us a heads up that there's a window for us to look at and track events, and that window starts today. And we'll get into something that Q posted near the end of this message that may be relevant. So people have been asking for a long time, why was Joe Biden tweeting about America's preparedness for a pandemic months before we had one? This is a tweet from October 25th of last year, 2019. He tweeted out, "We are not prepared for a pandemic. Trump has rolled back progress President Obama and I made to strengthen global health and security." All right, so why was he tweeting about that? Q posted a link to that tweet. Who benefits the most regarding the pandemic? Virus or election? Lab or nature? So Q is asking here whether the virus was engineered or if it's just a natural virus. Coincidence or foreknowledge? Difficult truths. Q. All right. So now we have this from Q. These are strategic goals that might be accomplished through the pandemic. 1, terminate history-making economic gains made by POTUS prior to the election. 2, stall U.S.-China trade phase 2, buy China time, prevent loss of billions, locked new agreement. Number 3, terminate, hold POTUS record attendance rallies across USA, deplete and remove enthusiasm. Number 4, protect Biden from embarrassment regarding mental health, clear cognitive decline, Q&A, rally attendance, crowd size, lack of enthusiasm, etc. Number 5, protect Biden from Ukraine scandal regarding himself and his son, COVID-19 change of narrative. We're going to be talking about more about that in just a minute. Protect Biden from sexual assault allegation, COVID-19 change of narrative. Everyone forgot about the fact that he was accused of sexual assault. Number 7, protect and shelter the Me Too Democrat-created movement and preserve it to target future Republican people regarding sexual assault allegations and allow a hold on that narrative against Joe Biden due to COVID-19 narrative change. So the sexual assault allegations are going to be selectively rolled out, apparently. Number 8, create a non-digital pathway to rig the 2020 presidential election. Engage 80 million mail-in ballot distribution coordinated as early as April or May to sidestep election night defeat. Trump will not concede. Attempt ballot harvest, media push. We don't know how many ballots are left undelivered by the Postal Service regarding legal challenge battleground states. Stall, challenge, push division and chaos, and then class 1 through 99. So the whole COVID thing, the lockdowns and the vote by mail gives them a reason to say on the night of the election that they don't know who won the election, even if Trump was clearly winning, as I think that'll probably be the case. They can just throw this whole thing into chaos. Number 9, create division, hatred, fear campaign, primarily scare senior citizens from voting in person on election day. Riots, protests, COVID-19, death. Eliminate enough senior Republican votes to counteract Democrat to Republican defections, which there are a lot of Democrat to Republican defections. If you listen to people in California, they know a lot of people who are defecting from the Democrat Party and they're going to vote Republican this year. Number 10, create the impression that the county is divided. Use the EU early war election gaming tactics against the current administration. Number 11, propaganda, blame, attack current administration on economic hardships, the death toll. You look at the mainstream media, all they're doing is pushing this COVID death numbers, which, of course, we now know from the CDC numbers that only a small fraction of people who died with COVID actually died from COVID. But the mainstream media is just, this is their plan of attack. Plan of attack, safety and well-being. This is regarding elderly people. COVID-19 failed. Trump's strategy, push the Biden, stage Biden had to answer to pandemic early on. The country will heal with a Biden victory. Violence will end with a Biden victory. Actually, Joe Biden gave a speech today, and he said that if Trump is elected, the violence is going to continue. But if he's elected, it'll end. So Biden is trying to tell you, if I don't win, we're going to burn the country to the ground. Number 12, change the narrative. 44, Obama administration, treason and corruption to POTUS, COVID-19 failure and death, blame. 13, isolate the faithful from each other, remove the ability to attend church, house of worship. Justify social media censorship by using COVID-19, World Health Organization claims as a primary foundation. Extend beyond COVID-19 to other political areas to remove and cut off forms of anti-narrative communication, seize control. So anyone on YouTube who puts out a video challenging the World Health Organization view of COVID, they get their videos taken down. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, you get your posts removed. It's all about control. And I want to go back to 13 because we have some news today regarding the shutdowns and the lockdowns. So the state of Pennsylvania governor, his lockdown orders were ruled to be unconstitutional by a federal judge today. President Trump tweeted about that today. Now he's looking forward to judges ruling on his cases. The president has several lawsuits pending regarding vote by mail, and he's optimistic that he's going to win those cases. So no reason to panic about vote by mail just yet. There's a good chance that a court will rule in his favor and vote by mail may get thrown out in some states. All right, going to 15, leave the door open to constitution crisis. So if we don't have an outcome of the election on election night, you have a constitutional crisis. Who's going to be the president? That is one of the things that they're pushing. Number 16, avoid or delay public exposure of corruption and accountability, prevent loss or control of power of the corrupt politicians, avoid and delay the loss of U.S. taxpayer trillions due to loss of control, inability to enact corrupt policy to send money overseas disguised as goodwill and climate, unregulated, no audit policy. So this big push for putting us back into the climate accord, it's a slush fund. It's not audited. No one knows where the money goes. Money likely goes into the pockets of politicians, and that is why Trump is against it. Q left 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 open because there are more advantages for the Democrats for COVID. And then Q writes, how do you accomplish the above? Release a blank. Who benefits the most? Q. All right, we have a video, and Q said knowledge is power. Just going to play a couple minutes of this video. It's from the Clackamas County, Oregon Board of Commissioners meeting.
So we have somebody, wait, we've got somebody here from the sheriff's office.
Let's hear from him maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chair Bernard, I assume you're referring to me?
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize that I'm late, and I'm working in the EOC, and it's a little chaotic here, and I got pulled off, and I just got on at exactly 3 o'clock, so thanks for your patience. The sheriff got pulled away to a news conference, as did Captain Strangfield. So for everyone in the room who doesn't know me, I'm Captain Jeff Smith, and so I'm appearing on their behalf.
Okay. Well, maybe you could answer some questions for us. The Sheriff's Department or various representatives have asked us to consider adding a curfew to our emergency ordinance. And at this point, the Board of County Commissioners would just check the box. And then the sheriffs, can you tell us what the sheriff envisions?
Yeah, so if I could hopefully elaborate and give you guys some information, so it helps in helping you make your decision on that. So yeah, the reason we're asking for a curfew, and we would probably liken that to the time of the noise ordinance to be implemented around 10 p.m. overnight. There are lots of confirmed reports of looting, mostly in the outlying areas, Estacada, Colton, Moala, Sandy, mostly in the outlying areas. Lots of looting has been taking place, burglaries and whatnot. There's reports of, and this is not specific to an area, but all over the county, both outlying and even closer into town, of people of extremist groups staging gas cans for later destruction. And equally concerning is there are reports of people from other extremist groups. It's not confirmed Antifa, but suspected Antifa. This is more specific to the Estacada area. Reports and sightings of people armed with chainsaws. And the goal was to fall telephone poles in hopes of starting further fires.
An Anon said, listen to the 1333 mark in the video. They're talking about these types running around. Antifa. So Q posted this. Pictures of 8 people who have been arrested for arson regarding wildfires in the western U.S. And then Q posted this. We have Antifa flag. Antifa units training and fighting in Syria. And then Q posted this. We've seen this before. The 1933 paramilitary wing of the Communist Party of Germany. 2017 paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party of America. We know that the Antifa of 1930s was the paramilitary wing of the German Communist Party, which was actually backed by the Soviet government. Q posted this picture, said know your enemy. Antifa flag is in front of this ISIS poster. And actually, the Antifa flag was used by Kurdish fighters who fought against ISIS. This article said that 2 Spanish volunteers who went to the region to fight ISIS in an international brigade were arrested upon returning to their country and faced charges of being members of a terrorist organization. And this is a Newsweek article. In July of 2019, a report from the Department of Homeland Security said members of Antifa were being investigated as possible terrorists with affiliations to Kurdish militant groups fighting in Syria. And an Anon posted some patches from Operation Iraqi Freedom. Q responded, strength and valor, warrior, we stand at the ready, always, Q. All right, so I had to do a little digging on this one. Q posted the names, ages, and then links to a number of articles about people that have been arrested in connection to fires in the West. I'm not going to read all these. Just a lot of names, a lot of ages. Some of the entries are unknown because they haven't made an arrest yet, but they know that it was arson. The very bottom line, Q writes, combat tactics, Mr. Ryan. By turning into the path of the torpedo, the captain closed a distance before it could arm itself, Q. So that is from the film Hunt for Red October.
315.
You're heading straight into that torpedo.
Yes.
Doing what?
It's turned right into the torpedo's path.
What?
Red October's turned directly into the torpedo's path, sir.
Mother of God.
Torpedo steady bearing 315, range 5,000 yards.
Pelican, more speed.
Negative. We're already running 110%.
And give me 115%.
Estimate range 3,000 yards, closing awfully fast.
He's headed right into the torpedo. What's he trying to do, kill himself?
Thompson, we have a firing solution on the Russian Alpha. Can we shoot back?
They didn't shoot at us. I can't attack a Soviet submarine without authorization.
Torpedo bearing steady at 315. Best range 900 yards.
Torpedo impact, 20 seconds.
What books?
Pardon me?
What books did you write?
I wrote a biography of Admiral Halsey called The Fighting Sailor about naval combat tactics.
I know this book.
Torpedo impact.
Your conclusions were all wrong, Brian.
10 seconds.
Halsey acted stupidly.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Torpedo impact.
I'll be damned.
What happened?
tactics, Mr. Ryan. By turning into this torpedo, the captain closed the distance before it could arm itself.
I'm not exactly sure what Q is getting at with that line from the film, but Hunt for Red October was a signature used by Q in 2017. This is an early post from November of 2017. The last few lines of this post are, who has all the information? No such agency. The hunter becomes the hunted. Operations underway. Operators active. Disinformation is real. Disinformation is necessary. Silent war. Some gets out. The Great Awakening. Iron Eagle. Godfather 3. Hunt for Red October. These are all signatures. It is interesting that the Hunt for Red October was actually changed. In February, the Hunt for was dropped, and it just became Red October. This signature, Silent War, was also changed to the Silent War Continues. That's what we've seen in the last probably 6 or 7 months. Q started posting that signature. So Q's signatures, some of them change. And I'm not exactly sure if there is an allusion that Q is making to the film Hunt for Red October. However, this post back in June 5th, Q did post this, full MSDNC blitzkrieg, known and ready, October surprises being prepped and warmed. Q. So what are the October surprises? Well, we're not sure, but all right, these are Q's links from this previous post. Jedediah Fulton, age 39, was arrested, armed man with a machete accused of setting 6 wildfires. Alberto Vincent Acosta was arrested in suspicion of lighting 6 fires in the LA area. Kevin Carley, 27, was arrested in connection with setting a fire near Tahoe. Ivan Geronimo Gomez, Dolan fire arson suspect, was arrested in connection with a 2,500-acre blaze. Guadalupe was arrested for a fire in Santa Paula. Julian Draper was arrested in connection with a fire in Pablo, Medicine, Montana. DeMarco Covey, 24, was arrested. Wesley James Bergman was arrested, Sonoma County. Elias Pendergrass, 44, he was arrested on suspicion of starting a fire. 14 confirmed arson hotspots in a national forest in Utah, and they don't have any suspects yet. Anita Esquivel, she was arrested in California, suspicion of arson. So all these people were arrested in relation to various fires that were set around the West. I'm not going to go through all of them. Q posted a link to a tweet by Chuck Grassley last night. And here's Chuck Grassley's tweet. This ear of corn is developed and will soon be ready for harvest. Corn Watch, Iowa. All right. Well, what the heck does that have to do with anything? Well, there's some interesting comms that are going on about corn. So on March 3rd, 2019, Q misspelled former FBI Director James Comey's name in this post as James 8 Corney. Right, so the special counsel is authorized to conduct the investigation confined by then FBI Director James 8 Corney. Right, so he misspelled his name. Confined is also misspelled, not that it matters. Right, that's in March of 2019. Now, 9 months later, when the Inspector General issued a report on FISA abuse, if you downloaded the document and you opened it in a program that allows you to do a search like Adobe Acrobat Reader, if you did a search for the name Comey, you came up with no results. All right, I did this. I opened the document, put in the search term Comey. Acrobat Reader gave me no results for Comey. However, if you put in the name Corney, C-O-R-N-E-Y, it would then return all the results in the document for James Comey. All right, so whoever prepared this document somehow substituted Corney for Comey. And the updated version of the document does not give those search results, but the original one does. So Devin Nunes has been trolling Comey with these tweets, corn ready for to be cut. And then there's some Q posts. Comey tweeted out, he's been tweeting out these pictures of himself standing in a cornfield. Q posted this, was the corn ripe for harvesting? It is now. We have brackets 93 DK. And of course, Q went off the board for 93 days after that post, and there are some other connections to it. All that is to say that the corn allusions are references to Comey being in trouble. All right, Q posted this morning. What happens when people in positions of power are sympathizers to the cause or part of the same organization themselves? What is a safe zone? Talking about Antifa. Why are riots conducted in specific Democrat-controlled locations? What happens when elected officials, governors and mayors, handcuff the officers instead of the criminals? What happens when elected officials, governors and mayors, refuse to call in the National Guard or other federal assistance? Sacrificing the lives and well-being of the community for calculated political gain or other. There's a link. Does Antifa fear prosecution? Would they continue to operate if they did? What organized groups are bailing out rioters within 24 hours of arrest? What happens post-bailout? Do charges remain enforced or dropped by district attorney? Link to an article. District attorney will not act regarding low-level arrests. Have all refusal to bring charges been related to low-level arrests? No, some of them have been actually high-level crimes. Link to a tweet by Andy No. Get to that in a minute. And then Q asks sympathizer, other, what happens when prosecutors, board of county commissioners, members, volunteer firefighters, etc., are sympathetic to the cause? What happens if the organization, Antifa itself, is aware? Infiltration, not invasion. A man in Portland, Oregon, was arrested yesterday for starting a brush fire along Interstate 205. He was released and arrested just a few hours later and charged with starting 6 more fires. Right, so these people are being released and they go right back out and do it again. Why? Newly elected Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt announced a new policy that will dismiss the cases against hundreds of rioters. He says in low-level cases he's not going to prosecute them. So the rioters and people that are committing arson are right back out on the streets. Andy No had this tweet. The last tweet from DA Mike Schmidt, new district attorney, who isn't prosecuting Portland rioters, is a tweet promoting an interview with his buddy, a militant Antifa activist. His friend is a part of the campaign by communist Angela Davis to defund police, abolish prisons, and demand reparations. How interesting. So Portland's district attorney is sympathetic to Antifa. Wonder why they're all being let go. So Q posted this this morning. Worth remembering. Think what you see today. Link to a document. And this is the government document on counterinsurgency and insurgency tactics. And Q pulls a quote from this. Insurgency can be defined as the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control of a region. Insurgents seek to subvert or displace the government and completely or partially control the resources and population of a given territory. They do so through the use of force, including guerrilla warfare, terrorism, and coercion and intimidation, propaganda, subversion, and political mobilization. Insurgents fight government forces only to the extent needed to achieve their political aims. Their main effort is not to kill counterinsurgents, but rather to establish a competitive system of control over the population, making it impossible for the government to administer its territory and people. Insurgency activity is therefore designed to weaken government control and legitimacy while increasing insurgent control and influence. Insurgents require supporters, recruiters, safe havens, money, supplies, weapons, and intelligence on government actions. A robust insurgency can be waged with the support of just a small percentage of a given population. And then Q writes, next, counterinsurgency may be defined as a comprehensive civilian and military efforts taken to simultaneously defeat and contain insurgency and address its root causes. Q. And the link is to the government document on insurgency and counterinsurgency. Now, I wanted to just take a pause here for a minute. Insurgents recruit citizens to join an anti-government movement. We're talking about citizens like Antifa. They're recruiting other people to join their movement, and it's about undermining the authority of a legitimate government. It's the responsibility of citizens to actively fight back against the tactics used by insurgent forces. This is not up to the government to put down an insurgency. It's largely up to the people to do it. And one of the criticisms that people bring against Q and the movement, they say that we sit on our butts and we don't do anything. That Q says, oh, trust the plan. That means you're not going to do anything. You're going to be complacent. You're going to let all this stuff happen. That is not true. That has never been true. If you look at Q's posts, Q is continually showing us the strategies and tactics of these insurgents and is providing information on how we can counter them, how we citizens can actively counter these insurgents. It's counterinsurgency. That's what we're doing. Now, General Flynn's banner says fight back, and Q posted this hashtag. Well, what does fight back mean? Well, as citizens, we're the ones responsible for fighting back against the tactics used by insurgents. Whether they're using the mainstream media and their Twitter accounts or YouTube videos or whatever they're using, whether it's in the streets with their megaphones, it is our job to push back against their narrative and their tactics. And one way we do that, I do it, is on Twitter. When the fake news media is out there putting out propaganda, I go on their tweets and I give them facts and I give people information. And I counter their information. That's what counterinsurgency is all about. Because a lot of what they're using is propaganda, and we need to counter their propaganda. So it's not about sitting on your butt doing nothing. We need to be heard. All right, Q posted a link to a King 5 News article. Power poles in Snohomish County were vandalized. I think this was yesterday with a chainsaw. They cut through the power pole, and the power pole was actually dangling from the cables above. Local authorities and the FBI are searching for a suspect and a motive. And Anon posted this. Portland FBI says there is no credibility to any of these claims. And Q posted this. There's a graphic that is connecting a number of people. All right, this guy in this car is this guy here, and this guy in this picture, and he's also over here. And this fellow right here, follow the blue lines, he's here. He is, this is his, I'm not sure if that is a ticket or a driver's license. He's also, this is his driver's license down here, and he's connected to this scene right here. And then this yellow gas can, right? So you have all these connections here on this graphic. We're getting more and more evidence to prove that there is a very well-organized and coordinated effort underway. So an Anon said, congrats to the autist who made this. And I guess I should just explain something here. So if you see a post, if you're following Q posts on a site like qanon.pub, and you see this and you see no image or anything, no text, you see this post number in red with the 2 arrows, and then you see PB. What that means is that Q has responded to an Anon on the board, and it wasn't picked up by the site that aggregates it. So that's why I always go to the board. I just go to the board and I click on this link. It'll take you to this Anon's comment. Deplorable Nurse had this explanation. All right, so this red number here is actually a link. It's a link to Anon's post. PB means previous bread, which is Jan speak for previous thread. Each thread has a max of 751 posts. After that, they have to start a new bread. And the Anon post that Q referenced was from the previous thread, so that's why you see that. All right. The websites and apps that aggregate Q's posts, they don't always pick up the comments of Anons. So in those cases, you just need to go to the board if you want to see it, or you can come to my Twitter thread or watch my video. Q then posted this. It's a high-res version of that previous collage, but it's got more images and more connections on it. Again, the lines connect people. So this guy, the blue lines connect him. He's connected down here. So another graphic for people to look into. All right, this is not something that Q posted, but it's worth noting. Senator Ron Johnson is the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He said back, I think in May or June, he was going to release an interim report on his committee's investigation of Joe and Hunter Biden and their connections in Ukraine. He said he was going to release this prior to the election to give voters the information they needed to make an informed decision. All right, so the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel is reporting that Senator Johnson said, stay tuned. In about a week, we're going to learn a whole lot more of Vice President Biden's unfitness for office. So I think we're going to be getting an interim report from his committee. And that could be damaging to Joe Biden's campaign. Is that the time maybe that they're going to switch out Joe for another candidate? Don't know. All right, Q posted this link is to a YouTube video, and he wrote, Patriot, noun, a person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and its interests with devotion. A person who loves their country and, if necessary, will fight for it. A person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it against all enemies or detractors. A person who regards himself or herself as a defender, especially of individual rights, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Q. And here's the linked video. Let you see this. And then Q posted this. It is a picture of Antifa burning an American flag. Insurgency can be defined as the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control of a region, domestic terrorism. Here's a definition for insurgent, a person who rises in forcible opposition to lawful authority, especially a person who engages in armed resistance to a government or to the execution of its laws, rebel. Q posted a link to a tweet by Daily Signal and wrote, why are they provided safe haven by D's? Q. This is an interview with Andy No, and he's talking about Antifa.
Antifa are masters at doublespeak. It goes from the name and it flows down. They call themselves anti-fascists. They're anything but. They're a movement made up of radical extremists, anarchists, and communists, and they're agitating for a political revolution in the United States. They truly believe that they're part of the vanguard to achieve this. And violence is not a bug, it's a feature of the movement. My name is Andy No, and I'm an editor at Quillette magazine. You might recognize me as the person who was beaten and robbed by Antifa in Portland. But what you may possibly not know is how my family's experience informs and intersects with how I cover Antifa. Both my parents are from the former South Vietnam. They actually lived through a Marxist revolution. My father, as a young man, was sent to a re-education camp. My mother, as a teenager with her siblings and entire family, were relocated to a labor camp. Antifa views the United States as an irredeemable country and concept. They abhor the principles that make up the foundations of liberal democracy. If they were to achieve their goal, there wouldn't just be the destruction of the state, there would be the silencing of all oppositional views. They're authoritarian militants who believe that only a Marxist revolution could bring about equity. In Portland, it's a progressive monoculture, and you're more likely to see open socialists and communists than you would even just a regular Republican or conservative. This context made me fascinated to want to learn more about Antifa. I knew that there was more meaning behind the street violence. And indeed, the more that I've dug into it, the more I'm disturbed by what I find. The movement as we understand it now is very young. We don't know where their funding comes from. We don't know exactly how many people is part of this movement. This requires academic research, requires research in think tanks, and it requires authorities to investigate. And that's why I'm speaking out. An Antifa militant in Tacoma, Washington, nearby Portland, Oregon, firebombed a government facility and allegedly tried to make a 500-gallon propane tank explode. He came with a rifle and he was killed in the process. We have a casualty now, and he left behind a manifesto for us to clearly see what his beliefs were. On the 29th of June, I was beaten and robbed by Antifa. Their attack ended up with me getting diagnosed with a brain hemorrhage. I'm going to continue to suffer for some time as I work on my recovery. I wasn't the first to be beaten, and I won't be the last.
We have an update from Catherine Herridge. Q posted a link to a short thread by her, and Q wrote, "Who is financing? Follow the pen, Q." So here is Catherine Herridge's thread, and it has an image. It's a copy of a document that came from Homeland Security. It's an email from July 25th. And I just gave you kind of cliff notes here. She uses the hashtag whistleblower, Portland protest breaking. According to this DHS government internal email obtained by CBS News, former acting undersecretary for intelligence and analysis Brian Murphy wrote his colleagues on the 25th of July that Portland violence was not opportunistic, but it was organized. All right, so contrary to what a lot of people are saying, that Antifa is not an organized effort, it actually is, according to this information. He said, "We can't any longer say that this violent situation is opportunistic. Additionally, we have overwhelming intelligence regarding the ideologies driving individuals toward violence and why the violence has continued. A core set of threat actors are organized and show up night after night and share common TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Threat actors who are motivated by anarchists or Antifa or a combination of both ideologies to carry out acts of violence against state, local, and federal authorities." And that gets us caught up to Q for today. If this broadcast has encouraged you, you might want to subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, the link to my Patreon page is in the description box. The link to my book, Calm Before the Storm, is also in the description box. Please keep me and Denise in prayer. Keep the president in prayer. Keep Q and the team in prayer. Keep the military and the Secret Service in prayer. Love you all. Take care. I will catch you on the next broadcast.